Welcome to Keith and the Girl. I'm Keith Malley.
I'm Chemda.
I just noticed, Chemda, that yesterday's show with Zach Sherwin, we were talking about what it's like to pretend you're an adult. You know, I got to remember more people must be thinking this way. I know I do. You know, I'll get a call like, hey, this person wanted me to call you as a reference. When did they work for you? And I'm like, I wish they told me. They did great and for a long period of time, but the right amount, you know. And I think we called the show impostor syndrome. I spelled imposter wrong.
I didn't catch it.
Out of all the words to spell wrong. But I'm going to act like it's art now. I'm going to be like, yeah, get it?
Whoa. That's horrible.
That's the thing with being a comic. Nothing's a mistake. You know?
Wow. By the way, I know that you're calling it trying to be an adult. I call it practicing being an adult.
Yeah, you practice religion. What, you don't have it figured out who God is?
Right, yeah.
You practice being a doctor. My mom's in your hands.
Right.
So yes, practice life. Practice being an adult. I got a letter from my dad, by the way, today.
No, thank you. Wow.
Now, we haven't talked since I told him to fuck off. I said, we can't talk. I'm not even saying I need an apology. I need you to know that I catfished you because you thought you were talking to my ex-wife and flirting with her. So you were always rating me. Whether you were rating Kat or you were rating me, it was always me. And he keeps insisting, no, there's emails from her that you don't understand. That puts everything into perspective. Dad, she's listening to this right now, okay? I don't have to explain anything to her. This never happened. You can't fool me. And every so often, he'll still try to get us talking again. He'll send something innocuous, he thinks, like, do you know today is the feast of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, is my ex-wife invited? Then that's the end of that. Until later, how is COVID treating you? I'm like, oh, not as good as you were trying to treat my ex-wife. And then that's the end of that. So here's a new one. But this one is a little more pointed.
And this is directly to you. Now, for the record, for those people who are just chiming in, you literally told him to fuck off in an email.
Which is a big deal the way I was raised. It's a huge deal.
Yeah, for those who
even
it's
if it's justifiable because you told my ex-wife that she makes your libido jingle. I mean, you think you did it to me. I think fuck off is appropriate, but to our family, that's still huge.
I don't know many families, Keith, that you can just say fuck off to your dad and it's not a big deal.
I feel like I've seen some.
You have, for sure. There are some. And yeah, maybe that should be the poll. Do you regularly tell your dad to fuck off and it's totally normal? Okay.
He wrote, I can't put into words what I think about your comments to the Atlantic magazine interviewer. And I wrote back, wah! And thanks for letting me know it's out. So we'll get to that later today.
Ooh-wee. We're bringing the Atlantic into your fucking quibble. Right. Is it quibble?
Steven writes, I like says his name is Steven, Steven, but writes Steven with a PH. Keith and Chemda. I just got your new marathon. It's amazing. Gilbert Gottfried with JP McDade, and then it goes on and on for 24 hours. I love it. Thanks. It's fantastic. Well, one of them's here today. From Comedy Central, True TV, JP McDade. How you doing, JP?
I'm good. I'm just been focusing this whole time on how you misspelled imposter.
Right?
Like which route did we, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just like you switched the E for an O or something like that, or if there's like a J in there somewhere.
I did an E at the end. It's an O at the end. Impostor.
I think that's one of those deals where there's like an English spelling and a British English and then an American. You can really just freestyle.
You should have spelled it with O-U.
Zach Sherwin couldn't tell me fast enough. He was the one. That's why it's extra embarrassing. And I went, don't be a dork. And then I sent him pictures of Nazis. I hope he knows what that means.
JP is a little concerned. He means
grammar.
Keith has been called a grammar Nazi.
Apparently it's the worst thing. So I'm gonna
how else could you interpret that? If someone were to send you a picture of Nazi, of course this person must be
it's 2022.
Grammar.
They're talking about grammar. Yeah, of course. Some news I want to get to first before we get to the article. Kenan Thompson, the longest-running player on Saturday Night Live, has filed for divorce from his estranged wife. They were together 11 years.
Oh.
I'm seeing here every argument. And they have 2 kids, so that's always sad. Every argument he has, they say, he had that dopey smile and she couldn't take it anymore. That was just a friend from work. Don't you trust me? You know, he can't help but keep laughing, and that's going to exhaust the relationship.
he does break character all the time. So I wonder if like at home, it's like, of course I'm your husband. It's like, can you just have a neutral face? Can you just, does that exist on your face? Do you have to crack up at everything you say? You know it's coming. You wrote the script, some of it, and you're still cracking up. JP, what do you think of Kenan? I set you up, but
it's got to be like tough on a relationship where like, do you have to have a hilarious facial reaction to everything I say?
Everything.
And you just stop.
Everything.
I feel so bad because really he seems like a nice guy.
Yes.
I've only heard that he's a sweet man.
Right. And he seems like it seemed like the relationship was real. And I say that because like once you're in Hollywood, like weird shit starts happening. It seems like it was a real marriage. Then when SNL went to, recording from your house, his kids were involved. And it's like, oh shit, he's getting along. Like we lost so many families, to death, of course, but also to divorce with this pandemic. Like, maybe he's cracking up at himself all day now in SNL, and at least she got a break when he went to work. So
maybe he's just looking. So bad. He's just looking and being like, "Wait a minute, Kim Kardashian, Ariana Grande, Scarlett Johansson. This marriage is over. I didn't realize where the fuck I worked. Holy cow!" The great Tom Hanks lost his cool in public. You may have seen this. This is major news.
I did not see this.
Mr.
Slapped Chris Rock in the face.
Yeah, and he couldn't believe it. This is Tom Hanks. He's walking to his car. He's walking from a building to his car, and this is me just taking my time trying to load it up. Okay, it goes a little something like this.
I'll bring some items. I brought some items.
How you doing?
It's been a long time.
Be careful, Tom.
Watch out.
Okay, now, I brought some items. It's been a long time. Hey, Tom, this is paparazzi, of course, and that means they brought like hats and shirts and pictures and like, it's been a long time. How about you sign all this shit and I sell it online?
They're also antagonizing.
Right, and if you say something crazy, that's a bonus. I can sell that video.
They're also antagonizing with the how you doing. They always ask these very warm seeming questions, but they're like pounding you with it. And you clearly are not having a discussion. Like it reminds me of, do you remember years ago, this woman recorded herself just being catcalled on the street and she's just quiet the whole time. And it's like, okay, I don't want to engage. And it's just getting worse. So yeah, you clearly don't want to talk.
That was one of my first credits. That video that was catcaller number 4, and great day, really great day. Everyone was such a pro.
You would think you'd get canceled for that, but I don't think that really happens.
I'm trying to build my career here.
Move. It's been a long time, Tom. How you been?
Okay, somebody steps accidentally, it seems, on his wife's Rita Wilson's foot. She trips a little bit.
Okay.
This is where Tom takes control.
Stop it! Hey, what are you doing?
Back the fuck off!
What are y'all doing?
What are you doing?
People are crazy, bro.
Okay, now let me be clear what's happening. The people that are like, what are you doing? Acting like you would think hearing this, it's Tom Hanks' security. It's not. It's other paparazzi. A paparazzi guy hit the wife, knocked her a little bit. She didn't fall over or anything, but knocked her. Then he turns around and goes, guys, what the fuck are you doing? And then looking at Tom like they're best friends. Right, Tom? Can you... Guys, come on. They're the ones. And then it's actually like, they're like, they're built, they're grown men. The people behind them happen to be like nerdy, like, hi, can I please say hi to you? And then so the tough guys are like, guys, what the fuck? And they're like, what the fuck did we do? And then you'll hear him yell out, sorry, Tom.
Doing?
What are you doing?
People are crazy, bro.
Knock it over my wife.
Yeah, they're bugging. Sorry, Tom, about that.
And Tom fell for it. He's face to face with Tom and he goes, yeah, they're bugging. Sorry about that. And then Tom can't help but look over the guy's shoulder and be like, well, guys, what the fuck? Well, meanwhile, that's 10 feet away. It wasn't them, obviously.
Really? Bugging out. These people are.
Come on, man.
Sorry about that, Tom.
Tom, sorry about that, Tom.
What are they doing?
What are they doing out here?
They're the ones who did it. And then that's the TMZ noise you heard. Bum, bum, bum. They're the TMZ guys.
Jeez. I don't think that was
too much with paparazzi, says the paparazzi.
I don't think that was a big freak out. I do not.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
It was.
No, that was very controlled. I would have liked to see him go further. I'd like to see him go all the way Alec Baldwin mode. Just freak the fuck out on paparazzi. At least punch somebody, if not shoot them.
My wife's walking here, and you're walking around. Don't they do? Don't they do? Do I come to where you work?
Stop it!
What are you doing? Back the fuck off!
What are y'all doing?
What are you doing? What the balls on those guys? What are you? Yeah, what happened? Like, oh, I saw you. You stole my wallet. Yeah, what the fuck? What's going on with people stealing your wallet? Like, oh, your mother.
So, okay, something not the same, but okay. Something happened today. We were getting ready to park. Now, of course, we're in Queens. Very hard to find parking. We find it. We pull over. You know, you got to pull over in front and let other people pass. So I moved up a little bit because there was a car behind me.
To parallel park.
Yeah, to parallel park. There's a car behind me, so I'm giving it room. Maybe it didn't realize I was about to park, so giving it room to like go ahead. It starts parking.
Yeah.
While other people are still passing. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
So I start honking.
It's a new car for the record. It starts doing it itself, you're saying?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. No, the guy behind me starts taking my spot.
Oh, I see.
Starts taking my spot. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just pulled over here in front of a spot that you found. Okay. We all know we're all New Yorkers. You're taking my spot. And I'm starting to honk. So he's like, what are you honking? And I'm like, this guy's actually pulling into the spot. He goes, okay, hold on. He gets out of the car. It's very unlike Xerxes to like, but he's just like, hey, what are you doing? The guy is not convinced. He's staying in. Xerxes comes back in the car, and I'm about to back up, and I'm thinking like, well, I can respond bigger than I should here, so I'm gonna stay calm. But then Xerxes goes, why don't you back up? And I go, hell yeah. So I'm like, so now we're backing up. We park right next to the guy. He's in a parking spot. I'm double parked next to him, and we both almost simultaneously go, is that what you're gonna do now? That what you're deciding to do? Like, because it's not a threat, but it's like, no. Go ahead, park there. And he's like,
oh,
no.
good. Yeah, no, good. Pulling the spot. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He's like,
and then the guy went out and said, this fucking traffic. Everybody just parks like a fucking weirdo. Sorry about that.
Well, he started coming out of the spot, and Xerxes is like, we can't park here now. He's gonna fuck with our car. And I'm like, I know. So we had to get out. But he started coming out of the car, and we're like, no. You go ahead and park there. Have a nice day. And we're like, of course we're not going to do anything, but like, just understand, like, we know where you're parked.
Yeah,
So
I would do that too. I would do
so
that.
Stupid. It's such a little release. Like, no. We're good.
Yeah.
Hope you're good.
I'd act like I took a picture and be like, good, thank you.
Right. Yeah, we don't want to push it, but
like I have time for you in my life now. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
I've told you 1,000 times, Chemda, you got to keep a bat in the car. You got to have your parking bat just for these situations.
It's true. But, I don't want to commit a crime because somebody took my spot. But if you think I'm going to commit a crime.
Right.
Yes.
It's not Minority Report. Fuck you.
These are not threatening words, and I was not threatening someone. And if he feels uncomfortable, I just told him to have a nice day, and I hope you like your decisions. Thank you.
It's not illegal to be like, have a nice day.
Big eyes and everything. Yeah. and then you go into whatever story's in. Is your day well so far?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think if like people are bashing into you and your wife and getting so close. And by the way, COVID still exists. Back the fuck up. I feel uncomfortable when people pass me in the aisle at the supermarket. Like, if there's another way to go that way.
Well, Chemda's tough in physical fights because she still insists on that 6 feet apart thing. So she's like, oh, back up a little bit. Then she'll go to swing. Back up.
For the record, I do not have physical fights.
No,
the only physical fight I had is as a kid with my male next door neighbor. And
well, that's different, right?
I would scratch him. He'd get on my last fucking nerves. And I'd be like, okay, now we're fighting. I don't know. Or he once picked on my brother on the bus. I can't believe this. I wasn't a fighter at all. I don't know how to fight, but now you're picking on my brother on the bus. You live right next door, so we're getting off at the same stop. And I go, basically, is that what you're doing? Okay, when we get off this bus.
You always had this in you. You always had this in you.
It's my little brother. He's 3 years younger than me. He's 4 years younger than you, and you're being a little bitch pussy.
I agree, but I'm just hearing about this car story today. It's a coincidence the times I'm hearing these stories.
Well, I'm telling you all the coincidences. There might have been one more, but I can't think of it now, but I'll report back. But generally, I did. Okay, one time my younger brother came home and he's like, these people on the playground are bullied me or something like that.
And I said, I'm gonna go wish him a great day. Stay here. See?
I don't know why. Again, me and my older brother, we never really got into fights, but you can't just bully some little kid. So we drove up to the parking lot to the park. There's really nothing to do anymore. I started yelling. Both my brothers like, maybe not this. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we're not really doing anything, but don't pick on my little brother. That's never going to sit well.
Did you hear this Bon Jovi song, Have a Nice Day, where you're like, I get it. He's not saying have a nice day. I get it.
Okay, here's another time. I didn't physically fight, but again, with my little brother, I was dating someone and all three of us were in the car. And he goes, my brother's making conversation. Again, he's a young teenager. And he goes to him, what school do you go to? He goes, SVA. And my brother goes, what does that stand for? He goes, you don't even know what that stands for? And I go, mind your fucking
mind your fucking mouth.
I said it in different words, but I'm like, don't act like that. Don't pretend like you know something that this kid doesn't know. Just fucking tell him the answer. I'm not taking your side, you dumb shit.
That this kid doesn't know. And then your brother goes, I'm not a kid. And then you go, shut up. I'm talking. Now listen.
I don't like that. You don't even know what that is?
Sure.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
That's it. Thank you.
Should we get to the Atlantic article?
Yeah, where you and your father try to bully each other.
It's right there at theatlantic.com. It's on the front page as of right now. It's called The Lost Trove of Civil War Gold, an FBI excavation, and some very angry treasure hunters.
That's quite the title.
That's a long title, but the article's even longer, so you'll understand if I skip around. But it's the gist is, and again, this won't really make sense. We read kind of an article about this before. This one I'm featured in. But before we read we told you about an article or a story rather, where some gold got lost by the government, but these treasure hunters found it. But they found it, and I'll read this part. They found it thanks to my dad.
Who psychically told them where it is.
Right. And
they went to the spot to prepare, and the next day the gold was gone. They found believed it by the FBI.
Right. Again, convoluted, but you can read the whole article yourself. But you could tell anytime I read a story like this, including this one, the guy writing it doesn't believe in it. These articles always end with, but wouldn't it be nice to believe?
In God? What? Yes, it would be very nice to believe in God.
And my dad being a psychic and helping him with his gold and, all that.
JB, how you doing?
Is your dad like an astral projection guy? Is that what's going on? Like
depending on when you catch him, because I'm writing this Dad Emails book. I'm turning all that stuff into a book, so it's fresh in my head. Depending on when you catch him, he knows ESP, can literally read your mind, all of that. If you catch him a different day, he knows ESP is fake, and his job is to go out and disprove it.
Bottom line, I think he was really emailing your wife. I think he did it. He saw her on the astral plane and communicated with her.
Well, then tell me about that.
He's busy thinking about gold.
He loves gold.
And why wouldn't you?
Right. It was 1974.
By the way, wait, just for the record.
Yeah.
Keith grew up dirt poor. Can we call you dirt poor?
You can. I had plastic bags in my boots because the boots were so cheap. The snow would get right into them. I wasn't allowed to have a backpack. I had to take my dad's attaché case, an old one, with a broken flipper. Not that would matter.
Fancy boy with an attaché case.
Oh my God, yeah, fancy boy with the fist to the face. You tried to hide it, but I still had to bring it and take it to and from school. I had to bring and take frozen milk to school, and hopefully it thawed out in my locker in time. Well, I'm not going to bring it to lunch. You don't need that kind of embarrassment. So I'd throw it out at the end of the day, but I'd have to bring back the Huggy bottle. And by the end of the day, it's already, it could start getting clumpy in that locker.
Ew. And then didn't your mom clean out potato chip bags after you ate it and use them for bags again?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I would say that's dirt poor. You also never bought anything new. You went to, what are those? Not flea markets, but.
I went to so many discount stores. Buster Brown was our shoe store. It was in a little shack with only one employee. I think he lived in it. and blue suede shoes were on sale. That's what I wore to school.
No.
Because they were $4. And let me tell you something. There's something about this face that doesn't carry off the Elvis vibe. And there's nothing cool about these blue suede shoes, believe me.
Right. Keith is not that old.
Yeah. Yeah. Brother Love's like, wouldn't that be cool? I'm like, you're 50 and can make the choice. That's the difference.
Right.
No one was like, ooh, blue suede.
It didn't go good with your attaché case. It was kind of like a mixed vibe there.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mixing and matching with my.
Yeah, everything you're describing sounds like a pretty cool guy to this point, actually.
Yeah, if you live in Brooklyn, sure.
Right. I would have.
But he didn't have the mustache to go with it. And that's a big problem here.
He's got like a frozen milk pop-up place that you can. You have to have the app.
So the main guy in this treasure hunter business is named Dennis Parada. I'll bring him up a couple times. It was 1974. Again, I'm skipping around. 1974, Dennis Parada was 22. He sold furniture at a department store where the big impress the customer stunt was to shoot an arrow into a sofa to prove how durable the fabric was.
Okay. Remember salespeople used to do weird shit to show you? There were vacuum salesmen that would, as soon as you open the door, they'd throw dirt in your house. You'd start getting pissed, and it's like, I guess you want me to come in and try this vacuum, huh?
Yep. Sometimes management would hold more formal events to entice shoppers. On this particular day, there was a demonstration by a man billed as Professor Michael G. Malley, an expert in extrasensory perception. Now, again,
Professor.
I'm reading this book. Remember this, Chemda? That we found these old articles of Dad, supposedly that he says he did shows coast to coast, border to border in this great land of ours. I saw, then we found these old newspaper articles. They're just commercials that he put out praising himself. He gave himself 3 doctorates. Unrelated to that, he's also a professor of some kind. He's a reverend, of course, and Esquires thrown at the end. You know.
Now, I get that, and that's psychotic, and your
Sure.
father is psychotic, sure. However, another psychotic person did this and ended up being the president. There are recordings of Trump calling in as if he's somebody else to
Right.
be his PR rep or just a person like who like, hey, you want to know this about Trump? And it's like, really? Because this sounds like Trump. Oh, don't we all want to sound like Trump? I mean, I don't even know if that's what he was saying, but he
was
did call in as
he was
another person.
he faked that he was a PR agent, and he was saying how much pussy Trump gets, and it's obviously him.
I was his math professor at MIT. I was the best professor in all of MIT. And let me tell you, he was very, very intelligent. One of the smartest people I've ever worked with.
Why doesn't he have any certificates or anything like that from MIT?
No, I think he went to Penn Business School or something, like some bullshit like that.
Sure, I'm just saying. Yeah, well, him and my dad can't prove this stuff.
Right. Your father built a church in the basement because he was so proud of his priest degree, whatever the fuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no way he would have gotten 3 other degrees
And not hang
fucking-
them.
and not hang them and not throw them in all of your faces.
Right.
Every fucking chance he got. He always told you how smart he was. Here's you get a diploma.
Yeah. All right, back to this article written by Chris Heath, illustrations by Eric Harder, photographs by Jingyu Lin. Okay. That was Dennis insists of minimal interest to him that this guy was a professor in ESP. What a bunch of bullshit. He thought.
Professor in ESP.
Yeah.
Now you're already you're a bullshit artist.
I don't like the word artist. I don't think Subways are sandwich artists. I don't think my dad is an artist. But
Fair.
Bullshit craftsman.
yeah, bullshit craftsman, we'll say.
Craftsman feels like he can put that guitar on your wall, and I don't think he deserves that credit.
This was Dennis insists of minimal interest. During a break, though, Malley sat down with Dennis and some of his coworkers, even though he thought it was bullshit. Somebody happened to have a copy of the 1974 Treasure magazine about this gold. Someone asked Malley if he could do treasure hunts and suggested he look at this guy's article, whoever had the article. Malley appeared to speed read it, entered a kind of trance, and started talking in voices that were not his own.
Oh, wouldn't you love to see that?
Dennis recalls, quote, at least 3 different voices. My dad was talking in tongues. I'm going to vomit and eat it and vomit again. Oh, my God.
That's a good plan, Keith. I think that's fair.
It was the soldiers talking about their experience, something like that. Oh, so he was pretending he was the soldiers.
He was channeling the spirits,
Yeah.
Civil War soldiers.
They're
How
hungry,
dare
lost.
he? How dare he?
Yeah.
How dare you?
They're hungry, lost. I don't know. It's about 10 to 15 minutes of hearing all this, and I'm thinking bullshit. Then Malley asked for an atlas that was sitting on the table and for a pen. With the atlas open to the general area described in this article, Malley looked upward, eyes to the ceiling, as he brought the pen down onto the page.
Don't you hate that Malley is mistaken for you also?
I hate it's my name.
It's so hard. You're lucky he didn't name you Mike. You know, you were second.
When I say Malley, people hear me say, oh, Keith O'Malley, and I'm going to stop correcting him. Yes. Keith O'Malley? Yes. Irish, yes. The pen hit, Dennis said, and he looked right at me and he goes, Denny? I don't know how he knew my name. Okay? You didn't say, he's talking in tongues, but you never gave out your name.
You didn't say, hi, how are you? I'm Dennis.
Right. You just said, hey, I don't believe in this bullshit. Grab a pen. Grab a map.
Guess my name.
He goes, Denny, I want you to go to this spot.
And
it was-
Dennis goes, my name is Dennis. I always hated Denny. Can you please?
Right. And it was called Dents Run. Malley instructed him to gather 5 dirt samples. He was to scoop the dirt up with a wooden spoon and keep each... That's how I had to dig holes.
You also had to get a wooden spoon to be hit with, right?
Yeah, he knows from wooden spoons.
Loves wooden spoons.
He has to scoop the dirt up with a wooden spoon and keep each sample in a plastic container. Quote, no metal objects allowed.
Oh, now your father's an archaeologist.
He's got to add to it, yeah. Malley would tell him that one had been collected from the area closest to the gold. One had been collected? I guess a scoop of dirt was already collected by... Who the fuck knows? What am I trying to make it make sense?
Well, he's comparing dirt to dirt, and one of the dirt types is the dirt that is covering the gold. And Father Malley, which I think we should call him so that we can separate the two of you, knows the kind of dirt that is covering that gold, is what I'm understanding.
When Dennis' family found the cave in 2004, he decided to track Malley down, Father Malley, that is, to share the news. Dennis told me, says the reporter, that when he cold called after 30 years and said his name, Malley immediately replied, I know, the guy with the white Corvette.
Yeah,
They
because
haven't met in person since 74.
Doesn't matter. Father Malley has only met 3 people in his life.
Right.
Only had a conversation with maybe 2 of them because he's so...
Well, they've stayed in touch, actually. Dennis still periodically... I've never heard of this, Dennis. Dennis still periodically solicits... My dad didn't want us getting any of the gold. Dennis still periodically solicits Malley's insights about Dents Run and other sites. Quote, this guy, everything is 100% correct, Dennis says. As a result, he has promised Malley 25% of any proceeds from these searches. And I forget how many millions it was, like 500 million or something. It's something insane. It's something insane.
That's your inheritance.
Yeah, could be, if I was nicer. Let's see. Naturally, I tell Dennis that I would like to talk to Malley. They seem dubious, this treasure hunting company. Malley has never spoken to anyone about this, they tell me. Well, there's been articles where he talks to people. You pick up a phone, he's talking to you, promise. I keep asking anyway, and Dennis keeps prevaricating. I guess stalling. Is that a real word? Call up.
Yeah, that's when a woman produces breast milk.
Okay, so Dennis kept producing breast milk, but on the evening after we returned from Dents Run, I tried again, and for some reason, Dennis seemed to feel differently. He allowed that maybe we could just call Malley now and ask.
Is he afraid that people are going to steal his gold?
Dennis is afraid, yeah.
That's fair if Dennis has been looking for gold for decades and he wants to keep it under his hat, but he's got to know Father Malley wants to talk to anybody.
Right. It's going to be exciting, Dennis, Malley said on the phone. So this is not that long ago at all that this call took place. Then Dennis introduced me. Malley told me he'd be glad to talk and explained that he had just come back from the personal care home where his wife had recently moved. Quote, today was a fair day. 2 days ago was miraculous, but I guess I have no right to expect miraculous every day. She's clearly going downhill fast. Hey, tell him about Kat, Dad. She's doing great.
You know what?
You said your wife is a fine wife, but you said Kat is desirous and pleasing.
Also, like, nobody asked you about your wife. You're just trying to say, like, your position is such one of humility and love
Yes.
for this woman.
Yeah. Nobody brought up the wife.
And by the way, JP, just so you know, this man visiting his wife who has dementia and really just doesn't know who anybody is anymore, he got kicked out of this place. He was so annoying.
He gets kicked out of an old age home. I believe he sells insurance with all these degrees. He decided to sell insurance.
No. He thinks he sells insurance.
He has the pamphlets to sell insurance, but doesn't like to talk to people about real life things. So it never got done.
So is this a situation where it's like, sir, those diapers are not communal. You cannot take those. And they kicked him out.
I picture in the old age home, he was trying to sell insurance to people who can barely talk. They keep making up there's COVID scares so that he doesn't come. I was there. I've seen the place. When you get kicked out, you're doing something weird.
I picture him, because he pretends he has so many degrees, I picture him trying to school everyone who works there on what they need to do, because he's such an expert on everything.
Yes.
And they're changing your wife's diaper. Fuck off.
Yeah. At first, when I asked Malley about that visit 47 years ago, he seemed a little hazy. This is quite a while ago, my friend. I'm 81, Father Malley said. But then he began to talk about the otherworldly moments when, once in a while, he would be in the middle of a performance and, quote, something takes place that is not simply show business. He can't help it. That's just a fact. What, I asked, would he say to people who think that this doesn't make any sense, that you can't predict information about things like this? Quote, believe me, I'm about as skeptical about this as skeptical could get, he said. He talks in tongues. He believes in gods and demons. But he's the most skeptical there's ever been. And yet, it's happening. He worried about Dennis's faith. He said it's frightening because he tried to talk Dennis out of pursuing the gold over the years.
What?
Yeah, it depends when you catch him. Everything's the opposite, depending. But his wife's care costs his wife's care costs more than $5,000 a month. If the gold is real, he could really use his cut of the money. Malley no longer performs. I asked whether he missed it. Missed performing. Let's see here.
Well, of course he missed performing. He hasn't had a job in decades. He pretends to work. And now the person who was holding their financial situation down has dementia. So I don't even know how any money is coming in.
Yes, the little boy in me never grew up. It's not. It's money mom saved. It's, he's maxing out the credit cards for himself.
Yikes.
If he sells the house, that should help. But I guarantee he's sabotaging this house salesman thing. I guarantee he calls the owners and says something weird, and the potential buyers, and he's like, "I'm fucking out," I don't know what he could be saying, but he's probably saying something fucking weird. And then the realtor, which he finally got one, is probably like, don't be calling the owners or the potential buyers. That's my job. And they're like, I'm not. You are. Well, I am. They have to know about the septic system and how it fails on Tuesdays. Yes, the little boy in me never grew up, Father Malley said. So I miss being on stage. But no, I do not miss what I did with Dennis at all. That tore me up inside when I did it. But I shouldn't say when I did it, when it happened. It was more happening than a doing. It wasn't something where I said, I'll do this today. It just happens, period. Just happens. I didn't have an explanation for it then. I don't have an explanation for it now, end quote. I asked if he remembered the first time it happened. Yes, he exclaimed, with what seemed like a strange kind of glee, says the author.
That's accurate.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It was in Bakersfield, California. He said he'd done a series of shows at a restaurant there. But when it was time to get paid, the owner told him, Mike, I will only give you a check if you tell me something personally about myself that nobody else knows.
That can't be. That cannot. That's not. You
That's
can't.
a crime.
Yeah.
Pay the performers. I don't care even if they're scamming people. You have to pay them.
Of course. Malley stared at him. He had a gray cast look on his face and said, Sir, you're going to die in 2 weeks.
Motherfucker. Holy shit. So might as well give me the money now.
The man laughed it off and handed him his money.
Not even like you're going to see a red car in the next 2 days.
And try to turn fast. No, you're dead. The man laughed it off. Yeah, if somebody takes your spot in parking, let them. How about that? No, you're going to die. The man laughed it off, handed him his money. But 6 months later, when he went to the restaurant again, he was told the owner was dead. Quote, beaten, pistol whipped to death 2 weeks after you left. Exactly.
You know what? Then the police have to
Prime
come.
suspect.
Yes. or at least like an interview with the police. Hey,
Right.
this guy knew.
And going back to the thing about like the what's it called, dense front, where he landed that spot on the map, he's like, you need to go there and find some dirt. 100% chance he just got in a car immediately after he circled that spot and drove all the way to dense run and planted some special kind of dirt there and like, completely covered up, and definitely killed that guy. I'm sorry, allegedly, parody satire. I'm absolutely kidding.
I'm sure. And my name's JP McDade, and I promise. Parody satire.
But wouldn't he be like, first of all, possibly a potential suspect, but at least be interviewed? Like, how did you know? What did you see? Can you tell us? Did you see anything else about his death? Did you see? You can't
change the past, but did you see a gun? Did you see
Yeah, like this isn't, he died in his sleep or had a heart attack.
He's pistol whipped to death. That's something.
That's very personal.
And by the way, in the Dad Emails book, I see there's an article that he put out telling a story kind of like this. But in that, again, he wrote that article, and he obviously said this stuff that's in quotes. At the time, he knew a guy was going to die. He didn't tell them that they were going to die in 2 weeks. They did. Right. Why didn't he? Because you can't change the future. So why even tell him to make him nervous? That was the story with it. Unless he just sees everybody dying and there's multiple people. In the book, let's see, blah, 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 blah. Malley said he was so shaken up that he couldn't eat for a week or more. Quote, nothing. I drank some liquid water.
Oh, liquid water.
Well, don't think he had ice. Liquid water. I couldn't even chew on fucking solid water. But that was it.
That was, how old were you? You were a kid.
This time? Let's see. Whenever this happened, so I think it sounds like it happened in 1974. I would have just been born.
Okay, because here's the thing. No one can co-sign anything. Your mother has dementia, so we can't even ask her, was there ever an entire week where your husband just drank water? Because I think you'd notice.
Stranger than fiction. I know. It's crazy. But that was it. Only liquid water. I mean, that tore me up so bad. I can't put it into words. Well, it's an awesome responsibility. When God closes a door, he opens a window for somebody else to jump out of that you can't tell them. Thinking over this conversation, I was struck by how perfectly pitched Mike Malley's "aw shucks, I'm as skeptical as you are" slant was for a pair of ears like mine, because he's a reporter, he knows facts. It began to nag at me. Had I been expertly played by an 81-year-old psychic? I stumbled upon references to Malley's other career, selling life insurance, and 2 letters he published in a local newspaper, one recommending the use of shampoo on grease stains. What? You never cleaned a fucking thing in our house. The other arguing fiercely in favor of Bill Clinton's impeachment. I could find no other traces. Until, in the unlikeliest of places, I did. Keith and the Girl is a long-running podcast made by 2 comedians in Queens. They recorded their first episode in March 2005, and since then, they've done about 3,500 more.
Yay, I'm a comedian.
Congrats. Go us. Then it says something they claim is a record. Let me tell you something. I was talking to the fact checker.
We're claiming, but he's
all these are facts. But
Father Malley.
Claiming.
Yeah, Father Malley is pure facts, and we're claiming this is actual. You can look up who has more episodes and come back to us and let us know.
Right. You know what? During the fact checking, they said, "Is that a record?" I'm like, or like a record you're proud of or something. And I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of it. Like that. I almost didn't even want to come off like it was brag, and I didn't know how it'd be taken. So anyways, though episodes typically revolve around banter and current events, their mission, quote, Keith and his ex-girlfriend talk shit, is broad enough to allow all kinds of weirdness. Regular listeners are well aware of one reoccurring theme, the failings of Keith's father.
We should put that in our bio. We talk about pop culture, stuff that's in the news, personal lives, and Keith and Keith's dad's failings.
The portrait painted of this man is of a pompous blowhard and bully, a self-deluded manipulator, a lifelong fraud who has always talked big and achieved little.
Facts.
And all that's true. And the fact checker, when they called me, said, would you say your dad is a pompous blowhard and a bully? I'm like, yeah, you can write that. So obviously the author wrote it, and then they wanted to see if it's okay. I'm like, that's all true. Yeah, that's something I would say.
You know what's funny is I really thought those were your words. You would call him a blowhard. You would use that term. Yeah, it was the perfect description. I was like, oh, they must have quoted you, but they're not putting you in quotes. So yeah, they decided.
Here's the quote. He's just so full of lies and garbage, Keith will say. At least they went away from the other Malley.
Mm-hmm.
Or, quote, my dad is a psychopath without any exaggeration. In a series of shows devoted solely to the subject, Daddy Issues, Keith's younger brother Ken joins in, hour after brutal hour. As you doubtless will have guessed.
By the way, when you use the word brutal, he's using it like you guys are being brutal. But if you listen to the show, we are depicting a brutality that Keith and his siblings grew up with that he had to recognize was not a normal childhood by sharing it on the show. For the longest time, Keith thought he had a very normal, average upbringing. In fact, it was better than most. He had everything he needed. And then he started talking and jaws were on the floor. And we're like, Keith, that's not normal. And he's like, oh, really? It's not? Okay, I have to think about that.
I know it wasn't
everyone's dad make them sleep in the attic hanging upside down like a bat? Those
like we all get punished in different ways. I dig holes, and I'm sure other kids have other things they're embarrassed to talk about. So let's not talk about it.
And digging holes was one of the first things that Keith started talking about. And it's like, okay, that's really weird, but it's manual labor. There's extra things to the gig. I don't want to leave this out every time you say you had to dig holes as a punishment. You had to dig holes with very specific parameters of how big it should be. And you did not have a ruler. The person who did have a ruler and a tape measure was Father Malley, who came out to measure it afterwards, where it's always wrong because you can't do a 3x3 or a 6x6 by just looking for you. But I think your siblings had
Ken had 6. As time went by, he upped the size of the holes.
Right. Well, maybe there's more gold. I don't know. But then if you didn't get it right, you had to dig another hole.
Yeah. And of course you got it wrong. And then it was just until you got back inside. And when we say punishment, I never knew what I was punished for. He just got sick of talking to me. It'd be when my mom was gone working or something like this. And, he's fake upset at me, and I go outside and dig holes.
I think it's a strategic misplay to, make your kids dig holes because that's such good exercise. Good. You're just going to make them that much stronger for when, they get big enough to beat you up.
Don't let me be able to dig your grave.
Yes.
Final hole. As you doubtless will have guessed, their father, right? He goes, I'm only telling my one kid 3 feet. As maybe Ken only did 3 feet, and he's like, I'm picturing 6, though, you son of a bitch. As you doubtless will have guessed, their father is Mike Malley. Dennis Parada's Mike Malley, the so-called psychic, almost never appears in Keith's accounts of his father's many schemes and forestalled careers. And when I called Keith, he seemed surprised to hear of the context in which I had spoken with his father. He had no memory of his dad even hinting at anything to do with treasure hunting. Quote, I remember as a kid I had to dig little holes as punishment, he said a bit wryly. Quote, I wonder if I was burying gold. Now,
what does wryly mean?
Humor, but dry and in a mocking manner. And my dad hates mockery. Remember? He hates he doesn't mind, trying to hit on my ex-wife. But mockery, above all, is the 9th level of hell. Sometimes, he said, his dad would allude to psychic capabilities. I asked whether his father truly believed that these powers were real. Quote, I wouldn't be surprised if he did, Keith told me. He does believe, for example, that God talks to him and he hears God's literal voice. A lot of these stories with my dad, who knows? So I guess I'll never know. The end. That's how I live. End quote.
That is
That's true. That's true. I found myself being strangely careful when I spoke with Keith Malley.
This is interesting.
For instance,
it's so funny that he had to be careful with you who's putting out a timeline, who's reading from emails that actually happened, but not careful to this person who's like, yeah, I super speak to God. What would you like to know?
But they, I'd be like, what gold
I
is
told
this?
someone he's gonna die. You're not scared of that guy?
Right. I said, like, what gold is this? Like, oh, it's a regular thing. It's, it's already in the news, so no big deal. Can I ask you some questions? And I'm like, yeah, interesting. All right. Just so you know, though, I know you skipped over it and are deliberately skipping things. Unless the story's so boring, you don't know how to repeat it. I find myself being strangely careful with Keith. For instance, I didn't make clear just how involved his father still was with Finders Keepers. Well, my dad should have told me. But apparently they talk all the time. Or had he been promised a share of any rewards? Yeah, I didn't know about that. It's not that I found Keith's account unconvincing. Well, of course not. Mine made sense. But I was uncomfortable at the thought that I might be feeding Keith information that could somehow be used against his father, as though that would be taking sides in a situation where I had no standing to do so.
I get that.
And then parentheses, for the record, when asked to comment, Mike Malley described his son's accusations as, quote, vicious lies.
I get that. If you listen to 17 years ago when we first started the show and when Keith would bring up his family, I'd be as gentle as possible because there's a forgiveness to parents. They're like mostly trying their best. And when they miss, it's like, they're probably doing better than their parents. But once you get enough information about Father Malley, you cannot give these passes anymore because you're giving passes to an abuser.
Right. Right. What's a vicious lie? Let's take a look. A pompous blowhard and a bully? Did you talk small and achieve much? What was my vicious lie? Did I not dig holes? I said you're a psychopath. Is that a vicious lie? That's a fact. There's tests online. Take them. I did for you. Vicious lies, you son of a... Oh boy. I got lost here. Let's see. Vicious lies, page 6. There's one thing I didn't mention to Keith, partly, I guess, because I didn't know what, if anything, I would have meant by telling it. Just one more loop within a loop that could signify as much or as little as you want it to. But in the spring of 1974, within a few weeks of the day when Mike Malley first set Dennis Parada chasing hopes on a Pennsylvania mountain, Malley appeared in his local newspaper for a different reason. It was just a few words, Mr. and Mrs. Michael Malley, Somerset RD4, boy, marking the arrival of the son they would name Keith. Okay.
How does that happen? Is that just your local paper just lets people know when there's a new baby in town?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's normal. I could tell you things that might make you doubt the Paradas more, the article says. Might it shift your view if I described how the Finders Keepers men have become keen proponents of dowsing, in which handheld metal rods are believed to rotate in response to buried objects, and that they talk freely of vortexes and key lines? Or if I so I guess that's bullshit, whatever that is. You know what I mean? I don't really know what it means, but it's like, it sounds like they're hokey, these guys. Or if I detailed some of Dennis's inventions, including in his basement, an engine that makes energy by utilizing the way magnets reverse polarity as an iron bar moves back and forth between them. I pointed out that if you're truly creating energy, this is bigger than millions of dollars worth of gold, and could solve the climate situation and rewrite the laws of physics. Parada brushed that off like that was besides the point. A spokesperson later added that the excavated dirt was visually inspected and scanned with metal detectors. Beyond that, the FBI would say nothing more, which baffled me. That's another boring shit. Steal the dream. Now, here's how it ends, like all these ended. The dream of treasure relies on possibility, and in the case of Dent's Run, possibly remains. Plenty of people, maybe with a gleam in their eye and a spring in their step, will glimpse enough in this story that just doesn't make sense to make them suspect that the gold was real. We may not have seen it yet, but we will. And if some of us are that's like in italics, I guess somebody said it earlier. And if some of us are drawn to a different conclusion, say that a psychic talking to a furniture salesman triggered a wild goose chase that, 44 years later, led dozens of FBI agents to dig up a snow-covered Pennsylvania mountainside where nothing ever was, then that is doubly our loss. So I think they're just saying, that wouldn't we like to think X marks the spot and believe in fantasy? The end.
But here's the thing. There has been gold that has been buried because in the past, that's how people did things sometimes. That doesn't mean that Father Malley knows shit. It just means that he went, yeah, there's gold. And now everyone's looking.
Right.
I think the moral of the story is if someone tells you where a bunch of gold is located and they're not going to get it themselves, definitely believe them because they're telling the truth out of the goodness of their heart.
Right. JP has a great point. This man had 4 boys digging holes in the backyard for no reason. He could have sent them to punishment anywhere he wanted. Now we dig holes over here because the map says. Now we dig holes over here because God said. Somehow it was always in your backyard, and that's not where the gold was. Why are you digging there?
Let's go to some African mines. What are we doing over here? Yeah. Anyway. You can still, as you can see, my parents live, their house was at RD4, and the backyard looks like a golf course if you want to play. So, a bunch of fucking holes like we're weirdos.
But I never understood that. So the holes remained open?
Holes fill up themselves over the years, so there's little mounds now.
Wow. So if we walked in your backyard, we can see sort of like the hint that
you would know where the holes are, I believe, yeah.
It's literally like a cemetery of a happy childhood.
Yes.
Like that's where it's buried. A visual representation.
That's gold. A lot of people don't know how to raise kids.
And you know what was in that dirt, Keith? The future of a successful podcast. And that's the real gold. So you found it. Your father led you to it.
You should always thank your father for everything that comes to your life. That's good.
How would I know about this article? I wouldn't have known about it if he didn't tell me, so thank you.
He must have been so mad at your quotes.
And thinking that it was so bad that I'm going to feel, after everything that's been going on with me and him, I'm going to feel bad when he's like, I can't even tell you how I feel about what you said. I dug holes. You hear God's voice. What is so fucking crazy? I mean, hearing God's voice is crazy, but you said you did it. I was very clear. Like, you mean you're talking to yourself? No, I hear it loud and clear. Okay, and I let people know it. Also, I believe you know about, you think you have ESP. Well, obviously, according to this article, you do think you have ESP. What's the vicious lies?
Everyone is speaking from their perspective, and that's your perspective.
It is my perspective that you told me all this shit and made me do all this shit, Dad. That is my perspective. Hopefully with therapy I can figure it out. But that is my perspective, and all us kids have that perspective. What's your perspective? That you didn't hit on my ex? My perspective is that you wrote to me, thought you were rating the cat, and was rating very disgusting things and putting down Mom. That's my perspective. I have my perspective in black and white, and it's going to be a book. By the way, don't rate anybody anything if they're rating a book about you. Not during that time. Don't tell me we're adding bonus chapters now. Just calm down. Let me finish this fucking book. We're going to get it out there and try to make it as minimally damaging as possible.
I think it's an expectation of parents that your kid is going to speak highly of you, or at least like some kind of neutral when speaking in public. And that's just not. Right. He's not doing that.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of golf, JP, what's the deal with this Live Golf, LIV Golf? Some Saudi Arabia-funded golf game that I don't think we're supposed to be supporting Saudi Arabia too much, right? But they know that. Saudi Arabia knows that and goes, you know what? Let's get a Phil Mickelson to play. We'll give him $200 million. That's how much we want to look good to the rest of the world. Am I saying this right? What is it?
Yeah, you pretty much covered. But that does raise an interesting point. We are allies with Saudi Arabia, like in spite of a lot of stuff. But yeah, it's basically like the Saudi royal family wanted to like start this golf league to like sports wash their image in the global community, and like, maybe let's not talk about the beheadings and murdering journalists and stuff, and let's tee it up with the boys. But they threw a whole bunch of money at a bunch of golfers, and they got a bunch of them to come over, like Phil. But I think they did offer Tiger north of $500 million to go play there, and he turned it down.
Wow.
It spells how it tells me something evil's going on, doesn't it? $500 million. It tells me there's some. I'm not supposed to take the money, and these are all multimillionaires, to be very clear.
However, this is so smart. We know that the U.S. will, above all, follow sports. We know that is how you entice the U.S. to like you. Now, JP's into golf. You watch golf. Are you going to follow this Saudi Arabia stuff?
No way. Not even a little bit, because it's going to be a joke of a league. It's like not even the players aren't that good. The format is weird. It's never going to have the prestige of the PGA Tour. It's just going to be a joke.
What's the format? What's that mean?
They changed. So a PGA Tour event is 4 rounds. There's a cut after 2, and then it's whoever has the lowest score at the end of the 4 rounds wins. In this LIV, there are teams of I don't know how many, and it's a 54-hole event with no cut and just way more money, like a money that doesn't make mathematical sense.
Right.
Because they just have like a blank checkbook, and they're like, okay, we'll throw whatever we want.
And it's not enticing to you. It's not a little bit. You're not like kind of side watching this, like waiting.
And you have it on a smaller TV, like anything under 30 inches.
on my Game Boy Color, I watch it. But yeah, I just don't want to give it any oxygen. Like it's such a stupid thing, and I think it's like so bad for the game and bad for just geopolitics in general. Like the Saudis' long game is to just eventually open their country up to more investment internationally and just like be a world power.
Well, do you find that the golf community is going towards it or kind of staying away like you are?
Or are they split?
I think it's mostly against the LIV, but there are some people who are like into it. It's bizarre. It's definitely gotten more traction than I thought it would get.
I saw a headline, and then I just figured I'd ask you. I see the PGA, the real golf as we know it, banned people that played over there, but meanwhile they're still playing. What was that?
Well, they got 200 million.
So
no, but I mean, they're still playing in the PGA Tour.
No, they're currently they're not playing PGA Tour events. What they're playing this week is the U.S. Open. It gets a little confusing, but the U.S. Open is not a PGA Tour event. It's put on by the USGA. All 4 of the majors are not PGA Tour events, so those players aren't banned from them as of yet. But it remains to be seen if they're going to be like forbidden from them in the future.
I think I don't see sports being dropped. I see always a certain amount of people who just want to watch sports that much more. And if you're out of PGA sports, then you start going to LIV just because you love the sport so much, you'll have anything on. And I'm not shitting on anything. Before the Super Bowl, there's the Puppy Bowl. How does that fucking make a thing? You know what I mean? Like you'll watch.
Okay, imagine if they were paying the puppies in the Puppy Bowl $100 million each.
Totally.
I'd say why. I'd wonder why. Yeah. I'd wonder why.
Who's financing it?
Here's a fun little story. This is speaking of Saudi Arabia. It happens to be Pride Month. Saudi Arabia, they've been seizing.
Their parade is pretty subdued over there.
Right, it's a subdued parade. It's quieter.
Riyadh Pride, it's not lit.
You could sleep through it after the machine guns.
Oh shit!
They've been seizing rainbow-colored toys and kids' clothes. They claim the rainbow color, of course, promotes homosexuality.
Yep, that makes me want to eat a vagina. Just seeing the color rainbow, I'm like, mama.
Hair clips, pencil cases, hats. You can't have anything with rainbows on them.
This is so sad because they're doing that to kids here. Because my brothers, as far as we know right now, they have all boys. So 4 boys between the 2 of them, 2 each. And when they go to get clothes, the boys are attracted to the rainbows and the sparkles because they're little kids and it doesn't make a difference. But the actual clothes for little girls are cut differently. So even though everyone has the same body as a 2, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, they cut girls. So when the boys are attracted to a female article of clothing, they have to cut it a little bit so that the kid gets the rainbow and the sparkles and doesn't have to have these weird sleeves on them and things like that. It's so bizarre how they like rainbows are only for gays. Rainbows are only for little girls, but little boys like, bright colors and sparkly things.
I would be freaked out by a little kid who didn't want to wear clothes that were like bright colors. Like, yes, I'll wear this gray button-down shirt as like a 4-year-old. That would give me the creeps.
Do you think God's in heaven? He's looking at how the rainbow was used, and he's like, "Oh, the rainbow was just so I would say, hey, sorry about the flood, Noah."
Oh,
Try
dude,
not
I
to
don't
kill
want to be
everyone again.
Gay, this sucks, dude.
I didn't know it'd be used for something perverted.
Oh man, I thought you guys were going to be cool.
But maybe everybody had to be gay after that fucking flood because there was nobody to fuck.
Right.
What the fuck?
Right. Don't make it something weird like gay. Make it something normal like incest.
You put 2 of every animal on the boat, right? You got bears, you got otters, you got twinks.
Yeah,
and they all made it.
I don't know all the words, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Who is the greatest golfer right now? Who won the PGA Tour last?
Right now, well, Scotty Scheffler won the Masters. The defending U.S. Open champion is John Rahm, who's playing right now. Like Rory McIlroy is really good. There's no one like super clear cut best in the world right now.
I saw on your Twitter Rory McIlroy.
Yeah.
These sports guys have too many close names. Mickelson. I mean, give me a break. He said he won. He got his 21st PGA Tour win. You tweeted, and he said that's one more than someone else. Does that mean Tiger Woods?
No, it meant Greg Norman, who's the player leading the LIV tour. Like he founded the LIV tour, and he's like a notorious loser and choke artist. Like he blew away a bunch of tournaments. Like he lost the Masters a few times. But Rory got his 21st win, surpassed Greg Norman, just threw a little shot at him in the post-game presser. That was pretty awesome.
Who just had a case of the yips? Our man Tiger Woods, right? He dropped out of what?
The PGA.
And he knew like right away he's doing bad. He's like, I don't even deserve to be here. I'm gonna look.
Yeah,
like
he's all fucked up. His leg was basically hanging off his body about a year ago. Like it's kind of remarkable that he even played in the Masters and the PGA. And to put things in perspective, Rory McIlroy has 21 wins. He's one of like the best players. He's probably the best player of the last 15 years, something like that. Tiger Woods has 82 PGA Tour wins. Like he's not even close to anybody else in the modern era.
Holy shit.
So just retire. Come on. So is it really like year to year? Like, a football player, they get better, then they get worse. But in that order, here it seems it's 1 year on, 1 year off, no rhyme or reason. Is that correct?
Sometimes, yeah. If you can come back from injuries, or you can come back from like even mental blocks or bad habits and stuff that you got in, and like recover and be like a better player. Like Tiger Woods he looked dead in like 2014, 2015. We were never going to see him again. And then he won the Tour Championship in 2018 and the Masters in 2019. So go figure.
Maybe they didn't shush well during that game. It's like, oh,
right.
Shit,
yeah. The marshals weren't doing a good enough job of holding up the quiet signs.
I can hear people breathing. Does everybody here have asthma? Fuck.
And what happens in golf that the rest of us think it's boring that we don't see? Because there's got to be something going on that when I take a piss or something, right? Like, what's the? This is obvious. We all know it. But just
you're not entertained by them walking down the fairway? That's not interesting to you? No.
I mean, at least do what, like basketball or something like this. At least they cut to the crowd and be like, doesn't this guy look like Mark Simpson? Do fun things.
Fun things. So that's when you watch golf, you're actually watching like a live highlight reel of everything that's going on the course. They're like coming from this guy to this guy to this guy, like everyone made this putt, made this shot, or hit a bad shot or whatever. And it's like it's all between the ears. I think like you kind of have to play the game a little bit to have an appreciation for like how good those guys are.
I'm pretty good at VR mini golf. How does that translate?
100%. You could absolutely play the tour today, I think.
Yeah, you're white enough.
And I know all the secrets. Like they hint that you should go forward. I go, no, I'm going to go backwards, bounce off the other course. That'll come back. So that trickery shit will probably come in handy, right?
Fucking Ricochet Malley.
Yeah, they do call me that. They really do call me that.
How do you got into golf as a kid? How does a kid get into golf?
Your dad takes you to the driving range one day or something like that, or you hit a ball in the yard or something.
So same as baseball. It's like, oh yeah, my dad is into this. Yeah. Coincidentally, so am I.
Oh, I got into skee ball because my dad had me dig holes. Next thing you know.
I shouldn't just say dad. There's a really good article. I got to find out where it is. That I read it a couple months ago about this guy, Willie Wilcox, his mom was a teaching pro and got him into the game. And he was super, super talented, but he became a full-blown drug addict while he was on like the PGA Tour. And just like went to rehab last year and is now like on the comeback trail. It's a really good story.
So yeah, because that's how boring golf is. I got to do some drugs.
Yeah, you got to do some smack to keep it interesting every now and then.
You want to follow JP online, of course. The Twitter is JP_McDade.
You guys online?
I do go online sometimes. The Instagram is McDade, baby. And that's what's doing. Anything else that the audience should know, JP?
No, just hit me up on the internet and I will see you there. Love you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
By the way, you're not at home right now, right? We're not looking at your bed?
No, this is not my residence. No, I'm currently in Philadelphia. I'm featuring for Mr. Stavros Halkias at Helium for the rest of this week. But then it's back to normal.
All right. I do love your Twitter, and people do these tour videos. He did a little one. He keeps giving the peace sign when it cuts to him, but it's like, and I got bumped up to first class, and you see he's on a bus, and he's like, and nothing but sorry, I had to get I had to get the meal sent to me, and he's eating like to go out in the street, and it's very funny.
My life is pretty sick. I just want to document it to give people inspiration.
It's just like a PGA tour in Saudi Arabia, right?
He goes, I'm at the show, and I just got off the stage, and I killed it. No footage available for that. And then afterwards, so yeah, follow him online if you're online.
I'm pretty awesome.
Online.
Yeah, when we were going out to comedy to see comedy, we were seeing McDade baby every week at that show, killing it every fucking time. If you're seeing comedy, you got to follow this guy. If he's coming to your town, you got to go there. Come on, what are you doing? Watching golf? He already said it's boring.
And I want to leave you with 2 quick announcements. First of all, it's the anniversary of OMAT, Chemda's 1 minute at a time program. And you know what stuck with me the most? The procrastination one, where you do these different exercises for 1 minute. Obviously, you see what grabs you, and it's a trick, and and what you're going to really focus on. And I never find myself, unless I'm just sitting down to deliberately relax, I don't find myself bored or aimless. I always do the next thing now. And I know it's because of OMAT. Did that make sense? Yeah.
I mean, that's how these exercises came about. It's the stuff that helps me live my life. And I used to do things like, you walk in your house and you're like, oh yeah, that's on the floor. I'll pick it up later because it's going to take a second. I no longer do things like that. So I think it hits people in different ways. And really all the exercises are 1 minute long. The entire club is 15 minutes. I time it so that you don't have to go above and beyond. You gave the 15 minutes.
I don't want to go 1:05. You time this shit. All right?
Well, I think it's important when you're telling someone that you're, sharing time, that like, if I say I'm going to close it out in 15 minutes, it will be. You can stay for 5 minutes after, but we're timing that also so that it fits into your schedule. And it has been 2 years of OMAT Club. And we have such a wonderful community in the club now. And I really want people to try it out. So I want you to try it out for free, just to see what it's about, to see if it could benefit you. So if you go to keithandthegirl.com/OMAT, OMAT for 1 minute at a time, and you put the code in FOCUS at checkout, you'll see the discount and you'll get a whole week for free. Come check it out. You're going to waste 1 minute of your time if it doesn't work,
I have a deal from my dad. I am writing this Dad Emails book, and I gave you a chance to fess up, and now the book is coming out. So what I'm going to do now is tell my dad, you can have the final word in the book, not longer than 2 pages. Whatever you write, I will put in.
I love this so much.
You're so full of shit that there's nothing you could do to ruin this book. You may have the final 2 pages, you egotistical, do-nothing fuck.
Fuck. Oh my God. What a great idea for an ending. I'm buying 2 books. Holy shit. That is such a good idea. And I hope his final two pages are fuck off right back. Who cares?
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Just real big, vicious lies.
Yes. Whatever.
I have page numbers now. You can refer to the vicious lies, but.
Oh, what a great idea. Holy shit. I love it.
It just says Keith Malley's dick is small. End of book.
You said you can't write after that.
Okay.
That'd be great.
That'd be so great, good. It's the first book I want to cut to the end first before I start.
Sure.
Holy shit.
You may. Somehow that'll even make it better. You can have your dessert first.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Start it in the back and then finish it in the back also. It's like one of those movies, Limitless, the movie starts that way. Yeah. He's on a ledge and it's like the end of it. And then they cut to the whole movie. You forget about it. When you come back to the ledge, you're like, oh yeah, he's on a ledge. Oh, Keith, great job. Love it.
So once again, thank you, JP, and thank you, Dad, for letting me know about the Atlantic article. That was a lot of fun. And have a great weekend.
KeithandtheGirl.com